Good morning once again to our discussion on principles of economics, and we were discussing about elasticity of demand. So, after knowing the demand, supply and then elasticity, in today's class what we are going to learn is some important applications of this demand, supply and elasticity to understand some of the implications of certain economic phenomenon, right. These are interesting, at the same time it is very important as well. So, this is basically the applications of elasticity that we are going to discuss, applications of elasticity. Okay. So, first of all, when we say that application of elasticity, let me just recall what we have discussed. Elasticity is basically the responsiveness of your demand or supply, quantity demand or supply with respect to a change in price. Okay. That is what is called elasticity of demand and supply. So, first application that we are going to learn is, can a good news for the farmers be a bad news also? Can, the question is this, can a good news for the farmers, can a good news for the farmers be a bad news also? So, this is the question that we are going to answer, right, using simple demand supply and elasticity of demand and supply. Let us assume that this is here we are plotting demand and supply of agricultural product. Okay. So, this is demand and supply of agricultural products. So, initially this is Q star and this is P star. So, what is the good news here? Let me specify the good news. Good news is, let us say there is a favorable weather, that leads to huge production. Agricultural products. This is the good news. So, in a particular year, weather becomes favorable in terms of rainfall or in terms of temperature, so on and so forth. Weather becomes favorable, and that favorable weather leads to huge production of the agricultural product. That is the good news for the farmer. So, what will happen when there is a huge production of agricultural products? Then obviously supply curve will shift rightward. This is, let us say, S1, this is S2. So, quantity demand is increasing, and as a result of which price is falling, P1 star. This is, let us say, Q1 star. Okay. The question is then, what is happening to the farmer's total revenue? That is what we are going to understand. Okay. So, as we know that total revenue is equals to P into Q. Here we are saying that quantity supply has increased, price is falling. What is happening to the total revenue? Okay. So, when the quantity demand is falling, here the supply has increased and quantity supply has increased, and as a result of which price will fall, then the question is what will happen to the farmer's total revenue. As we all know, the net impact on the total revenue depends on the relative strength of this increase and in this fall. Let us now assume that there are two cases we can discuss here. Case 1, agricultural product, or let us say I will say demand for agricultural products is elastic. In nature. This is the condition, right? Demand for agricultural product is elastic in nature. What does it mean? It means that as quantity demand, as quantity supply increases, then price will fall more than proportionately, right. So, that means here if the demand for agricultural product is elastic in nature, what will happen? This is increasing more, this is the quantity supply, let us say the Q is increasing by 5%, and let us say supply has increased. So, price is falling and quantity supply will increase. So, what will happen? Let us say this price falls by. So, let me start once again from the beginning. You have a favorable weather, supply curve has increased. In the new equilibrium, what we can see that price is falling and quantity supply is increasing, right. So, if price falls by price decreases by 5%. So, what will happen to the increase in quantity supply, right? Increase in quantity supply, that since this is elastic in nature, So, that means quantity supply will increase, supply will increase more than 10%, more than 5%, let us say 10%. This is elastic demand. So, this implies net revenue will increase. Net revenue will increase. So, in this case, a good news is not a bad news for the farmer. Why it is so? Price is falling by 5%. Since we have assumed this is elastic demand, we are saying that quantity demand will increase more than proportionate. That is why net revenue will increase. Now, let us assume case 2. Demand for agricultural products is inelastic in nature. Okay. So, once again total revenue equals to P into Q, right. Price is falling, let us say by 10%. Quantity demand will increase, but less than proportionate, let us say 5%. Okay. Price is falling, quantity demand will increase, but less than proportionate. What will happen? So, total revenue, this will imply net revenue will decrease. Now, the question is, these are the two cases. So, what will happen to the net revenue of the farmer because of this good weather? That depends on the elasticity of demand for the agricultural product. In the first case, we assume elastic, second case it is inelastic. Now, let us think what exactly in most of the cases, what do we think that elasticity of the agricultural product would be? As we all know, most of the agricultural products are necessary products. Let us say rice, let us say wheat, let us say potato, let us say tomato, let us say onion. So, most of the cases, even if price falls, let us talk about rice. Yesterday it was 20 rupees, today it is 15. Just because price has gone down, can we consume more rice? No, it is not possible, because we will consume rice to the quantity what we can eat, that much only, right. So, a price fall may not lead to a substantial increase in rice demand. Same for wheat demand, same for potato, tomato and all these things. So, that means what I am saying, most of the cases we will get this second case. That means, for most of the agricultural product, demand is inelastic in nature. So, even if price falls due to large supply, quantity demand will not increase more than proportionately, rather it will increase less than proportionate, if at all it increases. And in that case total revenue of the farmer will actually go down. That is why a good news for the farmer may turn out to be a bad news also. Why? Because of the nature of this elasticity. If you reverse this case, at the same time a bad news can ultimately turn out to be good news for the farmer. How? Let us say that in a particular year a bad news can be good news for the farmers. How this is so? Let us say that this is demand, this is supply, this is initial demand and supply. In a particular year weather is not favorable, so supply has gone down from S1 to S2. So, price will increase from P1 to P2 star. What will happen to total revenue? So, that means in this case total revenue equals to, as we know, equals to P into Q, right. Price has increased, quantity demand will fall, but if we assume that agricultural product are inelastic in nature, even if price increases by 10%, I cannot reduce my rice consumption by that much proportion. Rather, if at all my rice consumption decreases, it will decrease less than proportionately. So, total revenue for the farmer, total revenue for the farmers will increase. So, this is a nice example of what will happen to the total revenue of the farmer depending on the elasticity of demand. Okay? Elasticity of demand, since most of the cases demand for agricultural products are inelastic in nature, a bad news can be good news, a good news can be bad news for the farmer. This is application 1, right. Now, we will go to application 2. Application 2. So, what is the question that we are asking? This is a policy question. Can a restriction on drug supply can a restriction on drug supply lead to criminal activities? This is another interesting question. Let us say this is the demand and supply of drugs. This is demand, this is supply, this is D1, this is S1. Demand and supply of drug. You can consider heroin, you can consider brown sugar, marijuana, so on and so forth. So, this is the initial equilibrium, quantity and price. In most of the cases, this drug supply happens through the borders. For example, in Indian context, the drugs may come either through Bangladesh or through Nepal or through other borders of the country. And government is trying to restrict the drug supply by strengthening the the vigilance in those border areas or by sealing those border areas. So, thereby, so that means what the government is doing? Government is restricting drug supply by sealing the border areas. Okay. So, by sealing the borders, by increasing the vigilance in those border areas, what will happen? Government is actually restricting the supply. So, supply will fall, and as a result of which price will increase. Price will increase. Okay. Now, since drug product is an addicted commodity, since drug is an addicted commodity, is an addicted good, we may assume that demand is inelastic in nature. Okay, demand is inelastic in nature. So, when price will go up, quantity demand will fall, but less than proportionate. And in that case, what will happen to the drug consumers' total expenditure? Let us say total expenditure is denoted by E, which is P into Q. Price is increasing because of the restriction, because of the reduction in supply. Quantity demand will fall, but obviously less than proportionate, because drug is an addicted product. Drug consumers cannot stay away from the drug even if price increases. So, in this case what will happen? Total expenditure for drug will increase. And when total expenditure for drug is increasing, what will the drug consumer do? To finance that extra money that is required for drug consumption, they may end up with involving themselves in criminal activities. So, lot of drugs related crime will increase. So, drugs related crime will increase. So, that means even though government's objective was to reduce consumption of drugs by our domestic people, it may actually end up giving more drugs related crime. So, that means the simple concept of elasticity is helping us to understand what will happen when the government is trying to reduce drug supply by sealing the borders or increasing the vigilance in those border areas. Okay. A restriction in the border areas will definitely reduce the supply, price will increase, but drug consumers may not reduce drug consumption because of the increase in price proportionately, because this is an addicted product. As a result of which, if price increases, let us say by 15%, quantity demand will fall, but less than proportionately, as a result of which total expenditure will go up, and to finance that extra money, drug consumers will end up with committing drug related crimes, criminal activities will go up. So, this is not a feasible solution then. What is the feasible solution? Let us now take another case. Let us assume instead of restricting supply, government has increased awareness of the side effect of drugs by educating the consumers. So, government has taken certain policies, okay, to educate the consumers about the serious detrimental health impact of drug consumption. Let us see what will happen to this policy. This is demand, this is supply, okay, Q star, this is P star. So, if the consumers become aware of the serious side effect of drug consumption, what will happen? Then they will consume, their demand for drug will decrease drastically. So, this will come down from D1 to D2. Okay. So, what will happen? Price will go down, quantity demand will also fall. Price will fall from P to P1 star, and this is Q to Q1 star. Okay. So, price is falling, quantity demand is also falling, as a result of which total expenses P into Q, price is falling, quantity demand is also falling. So, total expenses will fall, they will no longer engage themselves in criminal activities. So, that means if the government wants the consumers to consume less of drugs, first policy, sealing the borders or restricting the supply is not an effective way. Rather, educating the consumers about the related serious health impact is a better way. Okay. So, restricting supply is not a good way, rather reducing demand is a better option for the government if the government wants the domestic people to consume less drugs, right. So, this is again we are explaining by the elasticity of demand, okay, elasticity of demand. So, by educating drug demand which was earlier inelastic, now we are reducing that response. So, that means when the consumers become educated about the side impact, then this will result in the desirable result what the government was looking for, right. So, these are the applications of elasticity that we can explain using the elasticity, simple elasticity concept.